There you go, go.
A Holy Man, that's the name of our film. And it's meant to be quite sort of like a dark thriller noir with sort of like a lot of religious content attached to it.
It happens in extraordinary places, like towns and cities. We've got idea from 7, like already deadly murders and stuff, and also from Hot Fuzz, like the groups murdering the people.
Yeah, the storyline follows a cop called Lee who lives in an English town and he works at a local precinct. He has quite a sort of a harsh boss who's like constantly pressuring him to do well at work, and when he doesn't, he's like always threatening to fire him. And he gets tasked with going to like investigate all of these murders, which seem to happen quite regularly and how they're all connected, but they don't really realise how at the beginning. So he goes, and there's a whole load of clues sort of like left around the murder scenes, and he follows those clues, which all lead him to dead ends. And he's just sort of like in the place where he doesn't know what's going on, and he's like trying really hard to find a out. And then his boss sort of like lays him off and says, "Listen, take 2 weeks off, and if you can't figure it out by the time you come back, then just don't bother coming back at all." And so he does, but Lee is a devout Catholic, and he trusts in the church. He's obviously had some dark past, which is ambiguous to the viewer, but we don't know what that is. So the church has helped him get through that grief, and so because he doesn't know what to do, and he's in a sort of state of terror because he's losing his job, he goes and confesses to the priest, who's called Philip, and he sort of like tells him everything which has been going on in his life, including all the like the vital clues to the murder mystery. And he returns to work with nothing, and he says, "We'll just go home." But then he starts noticing, sort of just from the news and what he's hearing about the murders, that all the information that he sort of gave to Philip, who was the priest, about the murders and things, sort of seems to be affecting how they're done, so that it's like that wouldn't be obvious the next time that happens. And so then he slowly starts to make the link between sort of like the murders and this priest. And at the end of the film, he goes and sort of confronts the priest, and he realises that it was him all along who had been doing all of these killings. And he realises that it was the priest who was doing it because he believed people were sinning. And he was something of a schizophrenic, and he was quite out of his mind. But nobody would know that initially, because he's just a really likeable character. So he goes to the church in the end and confronts him, but the priest runs away, and he manages to get away. And then he gets a call from one of the cops saying, "Listen, you need to come and see this the next day." And he goes to the church, and the priest has hung himself. And that's pretty much the end of the film. Yeah, the characters, as I've already told you, it's like Lee is the main character, the protagonist, and he's the cop. Philip, the priest at the church, is the antagonist. Although at the beginning of the film we don't realise that, and he's just like a really in-depth, liked, highly socially revered community character. Lee has an annoying sidekick called Ollie, who also works at the precinct but isn't very clever. He tries really, really hard to help Lee, but he never really does help. And then Harris is Lee's arrogant, not very friendly boss who plays him off in the end. Yeah.
I tried to series of a wide-angle, double shot of a unpleasant tunnel, and then it jumps to the close-up shots of the details around the murder scene, and the Bible verse numbers are scratched into the wall, and then it's a wide angle of the dead body. And then a close up of the dead body's face.
Yeah. So yeah, to summarise, it's basically our film is a it's a dark sort of religious thriller noir set in an English sort of town, and it follows the life of Lee, who sort of goes through trying to find out who these murders are. And it's like, it hits closer to home than he realised, because he'd given so much away to the church in terms of himself. And then when he sort of like, he realises that it's this priest who he like really trusted, who's been going around killing people, then it sort of like shakes him up in the end. But the priest hangs himself, and that would be sort of like the dark thriller noir end of the film. So. Yeah, any questions?
Any at all from you guys? No? Oliver?
Can you just go into a little bit more? I didn't quite get what the opening title sequence was actually about.
Right, yeah, okay. I think that the beginning of the sequence would just be like a wide angle of some sort of random piece of scenery, but which later in the film would become really important, a key sort of like place where something happens. But we don't really realise that in the first place, but it's just like a slow pan or something around some piece of scenery. And then it would jump straight from that to like a zoomed in close view of one of the details at the murder scene. But you wouldn't really know that that's what it was first, but it would just be like a detailed, like of a Bible, or the scratchings in the wall, or maybe some blood on the ground or something. And then after that, it would jump back, and you'd see the wide angle of the whole murder scene, and the dead body laying there on the ground. And then it would zoom in again to a close-up of the dead body, and then maybe like a slow zoom into the face of the body or something like that. Probably with like quite rolling sort of piano music or something.
The